We're just more compatible, you know? So, I want a divorce. Sorry about this, Maria. Oh, and you can go ahead and demand alimony. He'll pay for everything. Kevin said this to me with a grin as he handed me the divorce papers. Next to him stood his mistress, wearing a smug smile. I had been wondering why he was coming home so late lately, and now, to my shock, it turns out he was cheating. Moreover, these two had the audacity to confess their affair right in front of our daughter. They didn't seem to care at all how a child would feel seeing her father cheat and being so cozy with his mistress. Personally, I'm not opposed to divorcing Kevin. But if it means hurting my precious daughter, I won't hold back. I took a deep breath and resolved in my heart to make them see hell. My name is Maria Wilson, just a regular 40-year-old working mom. Kevin and I met at work, and this year marks our 12th anniversary. I'm just a regular staff member in the accounting department, but Kevin is the head of the planning department, the company's star division, receiving a decent salary and benefits. Our daughter Rose, who just turned 9, is smart, kind, and a really good kid, unlike me. She's very affectionate towards me and has recently started helping out with the household chores. However, she doesn't seem to like Kevin very much. This is because he's not only unhelpful with housework and parenting but also criticizes everything I do. Growing up in such an environment, Rose recently doesn't talk much to her father. But for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to back up Kevin. This reason goes back to when Rose was 5 years old, and she had an accident in her bed. Sorry. Now a grown girl, Rose, embarrassed and nearly in tears, turned bright red. Don't worry about it. I tried to cheer her up. But at that moment, instead of helping to wash the bedding or comforting her, Kevin twisted his face and snapped. That's disgusting. What did you do? Seeing her father's reaction, Rose looked utterly heartbroken. Of course, I scolded Kevin immediately and made him apologize to her. However, Rose still remembers this incident and hasn't forgiven him. His apology was reluctant, and he continued to mutter complaints afterward, clearly not understanding how hurtful he had been to our daughter. Rose has realized this, and since then, she rarely interacts with Kevin, who only spoiled her when it suited him. Sometimes, when she approached him with a smile, even if he was in a bad mood, he would take it out on her. It was entirely his own fault, but he seemed convinced that I had turned our daughter against him. You're the reason Rose hates me. Is it that fun to exclude me? When he was in a bad mood, it wasn't unusual for him to yell at me like this. Even though we've only been married for 12 years, I find myself doubting if I can stay with him any longer. Every time the word divorce crosses my mind, I quietly sigh. One chilly day in February, when it seemed like the coldest days were behind us. All right, I'm gonna give it my best shot. Mommy's here to help, okay? Rose had been in the kitchen since morning, eager to make Valentine's Day chocolates. It seems that nowadays, kids prefer to exchange chocolates with close friends rather than just giving them to a crush, which is quite different from the Valentine's Day I knew. As I was thinking this, Rose shyly pulled out a differently wrapped chocolate. This one is for a boy in my class. Seeing her blushing and fidgeting, I couldn't help but smile broadly. Got it. Let's make some chocolates in this wrapping a little extra special then. Okay. I wanted to ask more, but pressing her might make her grumpy. Holding back my curiosity, I focused on helping Rose. The chocolate making went smoothly. And since they were to be given out the next day, we stored them all in the refrigerator. However, the next morning, the chocolates are gone. Why? Rose opened the refrigerator excitedly only to shout in despair. What happened? Only a few chocolates were left in the refrigerator. Then Kevin stumbled in, speaking to me in a mocking tone. Yeah, I ate the chocolates that were in the fridge yesterday. Homemade chocolates for Valentine's? How old are you? I would have preferred something fancy from a department store. Besides, you're not only bad at cooking but at making sweets too. It seemed Kevin had eaten the chocolates, mistakenly thinking I made them. and had nearly finished them despite saying they were bad. But right now, that didn't matter. Those chocolates were made by Rose. She was supposed to take them to school today and give them to everyone. What? Kevin suddenly became flustered and started making excuses. It's not my fault they were left out like that. It's like you were asking me to eat them. I did nothing wrong. To this, Rose burst into tears and yelled at Kevin. It's totally your fault for eating them without asking. I hate you, Dad. Later, Kevin tried to appease her by offering to buy her something she liked. But Rose ignored him and took the remaining chocolates to school. It's your fault. Why is it suddenly my fault? Because you didn't cover for me properly, that's why Rose was crying so much. His completely misplaced blame made me hold my head in my hands. Rose was upset about the Valentine's incident for a while, but her mood quickly improved when my parents visited over the weekend. Grandpa, Grandma, let's play together. Seeing Rose in a great mood made my parents smile too. Especially my dad, his face was so relaxed it looked like it might melt. Rose is such a good kid. My parents really dote on Rose, and she's very fond of them too. As for Kevin's parents, they live far away and are pretty difficult, so Rose feels uneasy around them. Around 10 o'clock, Kevin shuffled into the living room in his pajamas. It's too loud, it's the weekend, let me sleep in. Oh, sorry about that. Wait, Dad. Kevin, who had just arrived in his usual manner, was surprised to see my parents in the living room. My dad is strict about manners, and Kevin finds that challenging. Busy with work? Sorry for intruding at such a time. As my father apologetically spoke, Kevin vigorously shook his head. Then, he called me outside the living room. If your parents are coming, you should tell me first. Now I'm embarrassed being seen like this. But, I did tell you. I was working overtime yesterday, I was up late and I'm tired. Kevin reproached me in a whisper so my parents couldn't hear. Though I had informed him beforehand about the visit. He had forgotten and slept in. I sympathize with him being late because of overtime, but lately, he's always home late. Although we work in different departments, I hadn't heard that the planning department was particularly busy. Wondering if he was having trouble at work, I couldn't ask him anything further as he was visibly upset. Even after he got dressed and fixed up, Kevin remained grumpy. Almost lunchtime. Shall we go out to eat? Yay! Except for the still grumpy Kevin, everyone else enjoyed a pleasant time, and my dad suggested going out for lunch. Ah, I'm actually heading out now. Really? Yeah, that's right. I was surprised by his sudden plan to leave and asked again, to which he replied irritably. After that, we enjoyed a delightful lunch without Kevin. See you again soon, Rose. Yeah, see you. After seeing my parents off at the station, Rose and I headed home. When we arrived, there was Kevin, looking grumpy, although he was supposed to be out. Huh? Weren't you going out? Then, Kevin exploded in anger, shouting at me. Do you always put your parents first even after we're married? Shouldn't you prioritize your husband? What's going on all of a sudden? Do you even realize what being a wife means? Kevin continued to yell without listening to me. From his tone, it seemed he was upset about feeling left out. Then you should have come to lunch with us. I didn't want to spend my day off eating and having to mind your parents. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing and had to stop myself from retorting. For context, right after Rose was born, during a hectic end-of-year period, I was forcibly taken to Kevin's parents' home. While managing the newborn Rose, I also helped around his parents' house and tried not to upset his difficult parents through the new year. Compared to that, this shouldn't be a big deal, but to Kevin, it was infuriating. Oh boy. Rose sighed softly as she watched Kevin continue to rant. The smile she had just a moment ago was gone, and she looked utterly disappointed in him. On another day off, Kevin had unusually left home early in the morning, and Rose and I were enjoying a relaxed day at home. What should we have for lunch? Since it was just Rose and me, I decided to make something simple and opened the refrigerator. Then, the front door opened and I heard, "I'm home." Huh? I thought you wouldn't be back until tonight. As I went to the door puzzled, it wasn't just Kevin there. "Hello. You're Maria from accounting, right? I'm the new receptionist, Lillian Gonzalez." "What?" Smiling beside Kevin was Ms. Gonzalez, the new hire who had just joined the company. She was quite popular, known for her charm, and several male colleagues were interested in her. Why would she be here at our house on a weekend? "Let's not just stand here, let's go to the living room." Surprised, I led Lillian to the living room. Rose also looked shocked by the unexpected visitor. As soon as they sat down, they dropped a bombshell. "Look, I'm gonna remarry this woman." "What?" My voice was drained of energy as they looked at me with mocking eyes. They continued with smirks. "She's a better match for me. So, I'm divorcing you." "Sorry, Maria." "Oh, and you can demand alimony. He'll pay for everything." While saying this, Lillian intertwined her arm with Kevin's. Watching them being so close, a calm part of my brain realized, an affair. Actually, I was planning to tell you another day, but Lillian insisted on getting married before the end of the year, so we thought, strike while the iron is hot. Here, I even prepared this. Stunned, I was presented with the completed divorce papers by Kevin. I've been dissatisfied with our marriage for a while now. After all, I'm the star of the planning department, right? A guy like me matched with a plain old accountant like you just doesn't fit. I deserve someone young and pretty like Lillian. Lillian looked at me with a triumphant smile as Kevin spoke. Stunned by Kevin's harsh words, I was jolted back to reality. "Fine, you can have custody. Rose doesn't like me anyway, and she's become quite unappealing lately, just like you." "What?" Kevin's outrageous statement echoed loudly, within earshot of Rose in the living room. Glancing at Rose, it seemed she couldn't grasp the whole situation yet, but she understood his words. Rose was looking at us with a face full of despair. The moment I saw that expression on Rose's face, a surge of anger rose within me. I snatched up the divorce papers, filled them out hastily, and showed them to Kevin. "Is this good? I'm going to submit this to the courthouse right now." Then I took Rose by the hand, led her to her room, and quickly packed an overnight bag. I hurriedly packed my things as well. I couldn't leave Rose in a house with such people any longer. Quickly packing only the essentials, I decided to head to my parents' house to sort out my thoughts amidst the turmoil. Kevin and Lillian watched us with disdainful smiles as we left quickly. The next day, I kept Rose home from school and left her with my parents, then I went to submit my resignation at work. The thought of working at the same place as those two made me nauseous. Thank you for everything. The accounting department was thrown into disarray by my sudden resignation. I thanked the team, asking them to keep my reasons confidential, and quietly shared my situation with them. The team members, hearing my story, looked pale and were visibly shaken. After submitting my resignation, I left work early and headed to the house I shared with Kevin, along with my parents and Rose. We all worked together to move our belongings to my parents' home. Since there weren't many items, it only took a few hours to pack everything. I wondered how Kevin would react upon returning to an empty home. Well, that's fine. And with that, we left the house we had lived in for many years. A week later, I was still working at the same place as Kevin. I wanted to quit immediately, but there were handovers and remaining tasks to complete, and the earliest I could leave was in a month. I tried my best to avoid Kevin and Lillian while continuing to work discreetly. However, that afternoon, the head of the accounting department informed me that the president wanted to see me, prompting me to head to the president's office, puzzled about what it could be about. "Excuse me." As I knocked and opened the door to the president's office, there were Kevin looking pale, the president with an angry expression, and unexpectedly, my father. "Dad? What are you doing here?" But before my father could respond to my question, Kevin, tears in his voice, shouted at me. Why didn't you tell me your dad is a major shareholder of the company and the president's best friend? Oh, did I not mention that? Yes, my father and the president had been friends since childhood and considered each other best friends. When the president founded the company, my father bought a significant amount of shares out of support. And to this day, he remains a major shareholder. My father owned several properties in the area and managed them to make some money. Even though he was a regular salaried worker until he retired, thanks to that, we had a bit of money. That's how he came to be a major shareholder in the company. When I was graduating from college and job hunting during a major recession, I was struggling to find a job. My father introduced me to this company. It's a good company, it should survive this recession. Trusting his words, I joined this company. I did take the hiring exams, but it felt like I got in mostly because of my father's connections. So after joining, I made it clear to the president. Just because I'm the daughter of a shareholder, you don't have to treat me special. A modest salary is all I need. I'm not interested in promotions. I'm grateful just to be a part of this company. The president respected my wishes and treated me as any other employee during work. Only a few employees, like those in the accounting department, know about my connection to the president. Perhaps the pale faces when I submitted my resignation were due to fears that my departure, for whatever shocking reason, might impact the company. I myself don't wield that kind of influence. I didn't tell Kevin about this because I feared his attitude might change if he knew I was a shareholder's daughter. I was afraid that his behavior would change when we started dating, so I didn't talk about my father. That's how things slipped and continued until now. Well, it hasn't caused any problems so far, and I doubt it will in the future. In fact, I had completely forgotten about it. My father, while a major shareholder, doesn't interfere with the management. Since he never attends shareholders' meetings, he is somewhat overshadowed for a major shareholder. That's the situation. As I finished explaining, Kevin's face turned from blue to white. Seeing this, my father sighed deeply. I had intended not to interfere in my daughter's marital affairs. If you two had an amicable divorce, I wouldn't have contacted Nicholas, your boss. While saying Nicholas, my father looked at his best friend and our company president. But, you hurt my precious granddaughter. I couldn't forgive that, so I had to make it a big deal. The president nodded slightly to my father's words. It's not that I didn't believe my friend, but the situation was so unbelievable by any standard. Who would think that someone who had an office romance would cheat with someone much younger within the same company, right? So, we conducted an internal investigation, and unfortunately, it turned out that your affair was real. The president sighed, looking exasperated at Kevin. There was a different look in his eyes. My father also glared coldly at Kevin. It would be unfair to let this fool off without any consequences. Exactly. The two friends nodded in agreement. Then the president said decisively to Kevin, "You're fired, Mr. Wilson." Kevin, shocked, quickly retorted, "Wait a minute. Why am I being fired? Because I cheated and disrupted office discipline? Firing me for that would tarnish your company's image." Kevin certainly had no place to claim such triviality. Additionally, it seems worse for the company's image to keep an employee who, despite being married, is cheating with a woman much younger than himself. As I was about to speak, the president, with a heavy sigh, interjected. "There's another thing that came to light during our internal investigation. Mr. Wilson, you've been embezzling company funds, haven't you?" This was new information to both my father and me, and we both widened our eyes in shock. The president's face mixed disdain with anger, while Kevin began to sweat profusely from the sudden accusation. "Oh, and don't bother denying it. I have solid evidence right here." "Why did you embezzle? Perhaps to fund escapades with your mistress?" Kevin stumbled over his words. Likely because it hit too close to home. I recalled that when Lillian recently visited our home, she was decked out in expensive brands from head to toe. Despite being young and new to her job, it felt off that she could afford such luxury items, probably gifts from Kevin. He bought with stolen company money. Also, you've been increasingly absent and late to work, haven't you? Even without the embezzlement and affair, your performance evaluations had already plummeted. Kevin, too absorbed in his affair with Lillian, had neglected his duties. His selfishness disgusted me. It's appalling. Not just cheating, but criminal activity too. Hey Nicholas, we're consulting the police about this, right? Yes, actually, I've already consulted them. The mention of the police made Kevin kneel down swiftly, his sweat dripping heavily. I'm so sorry. It was a moment of weakness. So, you embezzled on a whim? Was cheating also a whim? Was hurting my daughter and granddaughter just an oversight, not truly meant? Oh, so if that's the case, I guess it's okay? Did you think I'd say that? My father's voice was tinged with irrepressible anger. Kevin trembled as he looked up at my father, who had an expression I'd never seen before. It's not my fault. It's because Maria, your daughter, stopped paying attention to me, and I felt lonely. Even now, Kevin was trying to justify his actions, claiming he wasn't at fault. Seeing his pitiful state made me wonder why I ever married him. I nearly held my head in frustration but instead responded to Kevin's excuses. I was too busy every day because you never helped at home or with parenting. You didn't even clear the dishes after meals, did you? Yes, Kevin had left everything up to me, assuming I would handle it all. When Rose was little, I had asked him to at least clean up his dishes. But he had said, that's too bothersome. Isn't that a woman's job? I work in a demanding department, let me relax at home. At that moment, I realized that arguing with him was a waste of time. It was hard enough taking care of Rose, but I had to take care of you too. And you cheated because you were lonely? How selfish can you be? Kevin flinched at my shout. I had never been this angry at him before. Because I thought it was useless. At this point, I realized no matter what I said now, it was too late. Thinking about how I could have spared Rose the pain if I had divorced him sooner made me angry at my own misjudgment. What will your mistress do when you're sued by the company and fired? Oh, and of course, I will be demanding alimony from both you and your mistress, as she said it was okay to claim it. Even if you're out of work and have no money left after paying back the embezzlement, I will relentlessly pursue what's due. At this, Kevin, now horrified, knelt before me. Please, let's not get a divorce, I beg you. I'll break it off with Lillian right away. I won't cheat ever again, please forgive me. It's too late now. I've already filed for divorce. That day, after I left Rose at my parents' home, I went to the courthouse and submitted the divorce papers. They were accepted, so I'm no longer a Wilson. Kevin and I are now just strangers to each other. Yet, ignoring this, Kevin desperately continued. Then let's get remarried, right now. Rose is still young, she needs a father, right? I'm sure Rose thinks so too. The moment I heard these words, rage exploded within me. How dare you say that? Unable to hold back my anger, I slammed my fist on the table. The loud bang made my father and Nicholas look at me in shock. You had the nerve to flirt with your mistress in front of my daughter, saying Rose doesn't cling to you anymore and has become unattractive just like me. Can you even imagine how much those words hurt her? You have no right to call yourself a father. Hearing this, my father's face turned into a demonic grimace once again. You said that to my precious granddaughter, in front of her? What have you done? Nicholas also glared at Kevin with fury. I have grandchildren about the same age. Just the thought of them undergoing the same hurts me to the core. Kevin looked at me, my father, and Nicholas. Everyone's faces were filled with anger and contempt towards him. There was no one on Kevin's side here. It's not true. I did nothing wrong. Be quiet. Ah. At my shout, Kevin let out a pathetic cry. All you need to do is stay silent and atone for your sins. Don't ever claim to be Rose's father again. If you try to interfere with Rose's life in any way, I'll use whatever means necessary to remove you from her life. My resolve seemed to have gotten through to him as Kevin's face fell into despair. Realizing he had lost his position, his money, and his family, Kevin collapsed. I delivered the final blow. You were going on about how Rose needs a father, right? She told me she hates you. When I told her we were divorced and you were out of her life, she was absolutely delighted. So that's it. Rose doesn't need a father. Not a worthless one like you. She doesn't need someone like you in her life. Kevin started sobbing uncontrollably as I informed him he was thoroughly disliked by his own daughter. But this was all Kevin's own doing. You don't even have the right to be hurt. Kevin listened to my words, head bowed, powerless. Afterward, Nicholas immediately terminated Kevin's employment. The news that Kevin had been embezzling, his affair with the receptionist, and my connection to Nicholas had apparently leaked. I remember once arrogantly telling Maria in accounting to fix an invoice I messed up because it was too much trouble for me. I've snapped at Maria before when she pointed out a mistake in my work. At first glance, I'm just a normal female employee. I'm not flashy, rather plain, and I usually can't talk back when spoken to harshly. Maybe that's why there are quite a few employees who take a condescending attitude towards me. It seems that those employees who were aware of my real identity turned pale and trembled when they found out. Well, I'm quitting the company anyway, and I'm not planning to do anything about them now. I just hope this teaches them not to look down on others. As for the embezzlement with Kevin, it turns out Lillian was also involved. She was soon fired as well. The president had already consulted with the police about Lillian's case. After this incident was revealed, Lillian was kicked out of her parents' home where she had been living. Due to her extravagant spending, she had hardly any savings and reportedly borrowed money from a shady lender to cover her immediate living expenses. Lillian tried to seek help from her colleagues, but no one at the company wanted to assist a criminal. Left without support, Lillian found herself in a desperate situation. Eventually, both she and Kevin were arrested by the police. The local news briefly covered their arrest, but it was quickly overshadowed by other stories and faded from public memory. Before being arrested, Kevin called me. "Please, let's start over. I've realized my mistakes and changed my heart. I swear I won't do anything so foolish again." I had already blocked his number after filing for divorce and requesting alimony. However, he went out of his way to contact me from a different phone. "You've truly repented? April Fool's Day has long passed. I can't trust anything a vile person like you says. Then, what can I do to make you believe me?" Kevin sounded somewhat irate on the other end. In my mind, I vaguely thought that people don't change that easily. Then, someone snatched the phone from me. "Rose?" Rose approached the phone expressionlessly and spoke. "Hello, Dad, it's been a while." "Rose!" Kevin's voice lit up with joy. Although he had previously said she was no longer cute. However, contrasting with his cheerful tone, Rose replied coldly. "Don't ever call Mom again." "What? Don't you get it? Both Mom and I hate you. I'm really glad she divorced you. Since you left, I've been having so much fun every day." What Rose said was true. Since moving to live with my parents after the divorce, she smiles more often. I finally understood how stressful living with Kevin had been for her. I still regret not divorcing him sooner. I don't want to see your face or hear your voice. I don't even want to call you Dad anymore. If you understand, don't contact us ever again. Rejected thoroughly by his own daughter, Kevin was speechless on the other end of the line. He probably never thought he would be disliked to this extent. That's why you should stay out of our lives. If you contact us again, I'll consult a lawyer to handle it. With that, I hung up the call. Just to be safe, I blocked the number he had called from. Hey, no more calls coming in, right? To reassure Rose, who sounded anxious, I smiled and said, "Yes, there won't be any more calls." Relieved by my response, Rose whispered a soft good and smiled with relief. After that, we never received any more calls or attempts at contact from Kevin. Perhaps the mention of a lawyer had an effect, or maybe his legal troubles and police involvement left him no room to bother us. Or perhaps he was struggling financially with the alimony payments and couldn't afford to reach out. Regardless of Kevin's situation, it no longer concerned Rose and me. Currently, Rose and I are enjoying a peaceful life at my parents' home. Thanks to my parents looking after Rose, I've had a much easier time. After quitting that company, I immediately found a job closer to my parents' home. My years of accumulated experience in accounting helped me secure a full-time position. However, I can't rely on my parents' care forever. I'm thinking it's about time we found our own place to live, just Rose and me. Since my father is also in real estate, I mentioned this planning to consult him, but he responded anxiously. "What are you talking about? I want you and Rose to live here permanently. Your mother and I want to be with Rose all the time. If there's anything you're unhappy about, we'll fix it, but please don't talk about moving out." When my father, with such urgency, suggested that, I was taken aback and hurriedly responded. Okay. I won't talk about moving out, let us stay here forever. Because of this, my father is now making arrangements to transfer the property and land titles to my name. Well, if staying here makes my parents happy, I'm happy to accept their offer and continue living here. Rose seems so content surrounded by her loving grandmother, and seeing her smile every day makes me feel joyful too. Despite everything we've been through, I don't regret the choices I've made. I will do anything to keep seeing Rose's smile.